Hi, I just came back from Seattle Symphony's opening night of 2025, and I was very impressed. Here's my thoughts on the performances and the general experience coming from a um, someone who has done a lot of reviewing within the art scene, edited a lot of stuff like that, and has sufficient piano experience. I've been playing for like 13 years and also teaching. Um, I went to a lot of Seattle Symphony concerts last year, and we have a new conductor. I think you pronounce her name as Xiang Zhang, and um, her, her incoming her incoming season is considered a new chapter of the Seattle Symphony, and like any new chapter or new conductor, they really played into the marketing of a transformation of the Seattle Symphony, as well as calling Sean Jong as one of the best players by the person who introduced and gave a little speech at the beginning of the opening night called her the best musician of all time, which is a huge statement and really shows how the board of directors and the people in charge must be very supportive and happy with her incoming um, role at Seattle Symphony. And for that reason, a few differences between this opening night and the last one that there were was that number one, there were a lot less speeches. I think last year there were like three. Went to the concert. It was Rhapsody in Blue and Kasia Bushiavelia. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Was playing it along with the Shadow Symphony. I don't remember exactly what else they were playing, but there was another famous symphony. But before everything started, it started at 7:30. There was three speeches, including one from the mayor of Seattle, which was a big endorsement, which we didn't see this time. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed this performance of this concert, and arguably, I would say that this one was better than the opening night last year, even without the endorsement of the mayor. Now, to get started, the what some differences that I noticed between her style of conducting and the previous style of conducting of the last conductor is that she seems a little bit more in control of the symphony. When she walks in, it's not like the the performers like are waiting for her to go up, and then there's a little bit of time to get to the right note and then begin. No, she walks in, and the second that she steps up onto the conducting platform, and waves her arm, like literally almost a second after she waves her arm, um, and everyone is ready to play by that point. That is in my opinion, there's a little bit of a difference in terms of control and quickness of the performance starting, and also another difference is that contrary to normal Seattle Symphony, where they usually start at around 7:30, and I think even last year's gala started around 7:30 as well. It's usually in the later. It started really early this year, where it was around 5. They said exactly 5 p.m. and at around 5 p.m. they actually started, which is really good because preciseness of time I think is something that um was a little different in Seattle. Something not that I minded, a few minutes there, a few minutes here. Um, but in my opinion, in a state of growth for Seattle Symphony, having exact starts that you can rely, like, oh, they will start at exactly this time, um, is something of a world class symphony level that they will be, I hope, working on, and they seem to start pretty on time this time. Um, Now, the first piece was a contemporary piece, like in the normal style of Seattle Symphony. They usually play a contemporary piece, and then they play usually the main thing that people want to go there for, and then they end it off with a few symphonies or something of a just symphonic nature without a soloist. And so the first piece was a contemporary piece, and I hate contemporary, so I'm not the best judge on what is good in contemporary or not, because I normally just hate it. And last year, all of the contemporary, I think every single one of the contemporary pieces that Seattle Symphony played, I completely hated. I was sitting there and I was really unhappy, and I made a promise to myself last year that I would not go to any more contemporary pieces from the Seattle Symphony, but I was willing to give today a try because it didn't seem that I would be able to skip it. Yeah, because that's another difference. There was no intermission this time. It was just one song. Uh, Shanjung walks off, soloist walks off, and few minutes, like I think a minute, literally minute two maximum, and then they play the next piece, and then um, it was definitely a strange experience because everyone else seemed to think that after the first two songs, which is in normal Seattle Symphony chapter, there'd be an intermission. They'd get up and they'd have a break to get cocktails or talk between each other. But no, there was. I don't think they even opened the doors. I saw people, a whole huge crowd of people walk towards the doors, and then a lot of people just came back like a minute later. And yeah, and I could see that while Xianzhang emanates this confident aura, when she walks on stage, everyone is ready to play. Um, that when people tune their instruments, they play, I think C is the note, and then everyone follows, the orchestra follows. Um, the the first violinist, Noah Geller, who has been with the Seattle Symphony for a very long time, I've heard, he seemed a little bit more hesitant when he was starting. He was going to play the first note on the piano, and it seemed a little, he was unsure. He was not used to having the audience a little, like, talking so much, because everyone, I think, assumed that it was kind of the intermission, but it wasn't. Yeah. So, like I said, moving back to the first piece, um, I wasn't that I didn't hate it that much. Like I thought I would really dislike it. It was Jessie Montgomery's Hymn for Everyone, and it was a solid piece. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. It was like a palate cleanser. It was well balanced with a medium strong theme and good flow. And because the Seattle Symphony is such a strong orchestra and is very in control of their sound and musicality, it did elevate the song to a level that it was just nice to sit there and to experience the music. Now, to the second song, which was the Grieg Piano Concerto in A minor, which in my opinion, was the showstopper piece, but this is coming from someone who's biased as a pianist. It was an amazing performance by Simon Scherpetsky. I'm pretty sure that's how you. I'm not quite sure if that's how you pronounce his name, but it was a very good performance of the Grieg Piano Concerto. I think 2 years back, Jan Lisetsky. Again, I'm not that good with pronunciations, but he played the Grieg Piano Concerto with the Seattle Symphony. Um, I don't know whether it was the opening night. It might have been the opening night, but it was definitely, again, one of the show-stopping pieces. He played it with, it did much different than Simon did. He played it with a lot more, uh, gentleness and delicateness, where that's his own personal style, where it seems like a very watery flowing stream of music, where Simon Trapesky's was almost humorous but also very enjoyable. He was very excited. You could see when he was playing, he was very excited to be there. He was very excited to be playing the song, but he also didn't let that overcast his performance. He was very nuanced in his emphasization and his personal style. He knew the song. There was no mistakes from the piano concerto, which is very good, especially for piano for the opening night. There have been a few performances. I think even with Katya Bushiavelia, she had a few mistakes in places where in the opening night it was like muggy and not very strong emotionally, but this performance was just perfect in execution. It had a lot of personal style. It had a lot of musicality, and I would say it was almost Russian classical style, but mixed with this sort of funny, even funny, I would call it, style from Simon, where he had this dramatic flair. So Katya Bushiavelia, Katya had this, like, she would move her head, she would flick her hair forward, but which to me was kind of ingenuine when she played it. But here, Simon had this style where he was very big with his hands. So like any pianist, he had the piano swing. I have the swing as well. But he also had a little bit of movement with his hands, which is similar to Lang Lang, but in my opinion, a lot more genuine. And more, it's either a way he used his hands either a way to express his own emotions, which he seemed very full of, or it was a tactic, but a genuine tactic to get the audience to um, understand what he wanted them to feel and what the composer was trying to say in his own interpretation. So he would do these things. He would move his hand at the end of a movement. He would go like this, or there were these parts where the music was very delicate, and he would one hand would be playing, his hand would be up, and his hand was shaking. Like you could literally see his hand shaking, which is really fun. Um, but overall, he had this very bright cadence. It was very memorable performance that really stuck in my head after he finished, and is sticking in my head right now. Like if I listen to the Grieg Piano Concerto right now on Spotify, I think his will be better, probably better interpretation than um, the Spotify version. Now, for his encore, I was so happy when I heard the first notes. I knew it straight off the bat because it's one of the songs that I listen to on the regular. It was Piano Sonata Number 7 by Prokofiev, third part. Yeah, I heard it once by Yefim Brofman, and I don't think anything could top that, honestly, because that was one of my favorite performances ever. But he played it also. It was also very brilliant. It was a world class level where he had this very energetic, excited style. He was really able to achieve the loudness and the preciseness that the sonata demands. Not many people can get to that level where you have to really, number one, understand the piano. You have to have very strong hands because Prokofiev has his music requires a duality and a connectedness between your hands because there are a lot of strong notes and they're really bright too. And you want to be able to pace yourself so you're getting louder and louder because that's what the sonata demands. At the very end, there's a very cool, very loud cadenza where you really are pushing the limits of how loud you can go on the piano. Um, but he was able to, number one, pace himself, but also allow himself to reach the loudness that was there. I heard it and I was like, okay, good. He didn't mess it up. He's playing it as loud as it needs to be, and he's playing it at the right speed. He wasn't playing it too slow. Sometimes when people play it too slow, to me, it takes away from the excitedness of the sonata, and he had a very good because he has a style where he's really genuinely excited to be there in the moment. Those notes that were dun 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 dun, you know, um, he was able to really lean into that notes because of his own personality. Moving into the symphonic pieces without a specific soloist, um, there was oh wait, pause before I do that. Um, there were the reason why I would say that his performance wasn't at the level of Yefim Brofman's was number one, like again, it was a brilliant performance. It was world class level. Very few people can play that sonata at that level. But there was a very small few mistakes at the end. The part where it gets like very, very hard to play because it's so loud, it's so fast and demands so much clarity. Um, and I feel like after those few mistakes, he might have gotten a little bit anxious. He might have gotten a little bit something very slightly. This is very imperceptible. I don't think many people noticed it. This is just coming from someone who's been playing piano for a long time and has been listening to this piece very often. I just didn't reach the grandness and the scale that it has to reach at the end. Because at the end, it's like at the end of any emotional climax, it really has to be loud. It really has to be surprising, even in the amount of power that you're giving off in that song. So yeah, I would say he really got up there into the level he reached, but he didn't get to the fullest extent, which was necessary. Maybe because that piece requires a little bit more experience or something like that. Maybe something wasn't in the mood, but in my opinion, that was just a little comment of something he could have worked on. Well, not that I'm giving advice, but that's just a side note that I noticed. It was still a brilliant performance, I would say, and spectacular. I was very excited. Okay, now, for the symphonic pieces, going into that section, I won't talk about the piano anymore, hopefully. The Verdi, oh my gosh, I really hope I'm not mispronouncing. I have this huge fear of mispronouncing. So, the Verdi and the Smetana pieces, I'll put in the names in the caption, or I'll put them, like, I'll edit them in somewhere here. They kind of mixed into a blend for me, but a good blend, you know? Whoever put the program together definitely had a lot of taste when they chose the pieces, especially in comparison to the last few years of opening nights. I just personally, my own taste, where I really like strong classical symphony with very dramatic parts, but very strong themes that are connected and stuff like that. Like almost fairy tale like, but like again, classics. I really like classics. Whoever chose this definitely had that sort of taste, and I really agree with that taste, where it really has a lot of emotional climaxes, etc., etc. And that's what I would say came from these few symphonies. It demanded a lot of precision that can be achieved by a world-class orchestra, which I would say that this performance really puts Seattle Symphony up there as a world-class symphony. Not everyone can play this, especially with the amount of clarity and precision and musicality that was needed for these songs. So what I usually do in concerts, especially when it gets to this level where it's super complex, but it's also loud. Like I go to concerts, I don't buy tickets in advance. I get them right at the desk. So I was sitting like pretty close in the front. It was really, oh yeah, that's another note. I'll talk about that later. I was sitting pretty in the front because most of the seats were sold out. So it was either that or the third tier, which I've never been at this third tier of the orchestra before. And I just wanted to stay where I was comfortable. But it was very loud, and so what I did, I closed my eyes and I tried to take apart the melodies and see if there's any separation, because I've never played in an orchestra before. I'm not very experienced in that regard, but speaking as someone from number one who's young but also really interested in classical music, I would say that that technique where you close your eyes and then you focus on which melodies are here and there, and what also focusing on what the conductor is doing as a sort of guide through the music, really helped me understand the level and the precision needed. Because there was also another experience, right? This is a personal note. I know I'm talking a lot, but I went to a symphony and it was a bad one. Not here, it was in London. And that really helped me understand how bad, like what a bad symphony is, I guess, and what to look out for when you're looking for a good one. So that is that fluidness of the instruments. That is that when there is a silence or when there is a melody, the instruments are playing together. So there's no smudges, or there's no, like in piano when you play the pedal and you hold it for a little bit too long and the notes smush together. There's none of that going on with the instruments, but also the instruments being able to collectively increase in their crescendos, their diminuendos, and interpret when the conductor at their instruction wants them to speed up a little bit or do a little like this. I don't know whether people who don't play instruments can understand this, but this. But yeah, she was very energetic. Xian was very energetic. She was always in a constant state of motion, which is what you like to see from your conductor. Like sometimes they go like this. I wouldn't consider that a constant state of motion. I'm talking about like, like, uh, and yeah, she had a lot of expressiveness. She was not only the pianist is excited, she was excited too to be there. And um about the Smetana and the Verdi, I think they were both very spectacular. Especially the Smetana piece. I think that song not only the execution of it, but just the music in general, was I think one of the best pieces of the entire show. I remember when they finished playing it, like in the audience, people like what's good, when the audience is like, "Wow, that was emotional." Like around you. I was just listening. I don't usually like eavesdrop on conversation. But I'm pretty sure everyone in the audience was just saying that because it was a very emotional ending and it was very complex and it was perfectly executed. So they were really able to convey the largeness of the music without hiding behind the music itself, which I see a lot of um, orchestras do sometimes, or people who aren't that good, I guess, they can get away with playing the song, but hiding behind the music because the music itself is really good, you know. And their maybe mediocre performance or below average performance can be ignored sometimes because people are just enjoying the experience to hear something live or hear a song live that is a beautiful song, you know? They're not ruining it necessarily, but they're not elevating it to another level, which I really saw at this Seattle Symphony opening. They really elevated the music and they really strove for perfection, which I am happy to see from Seattle Symphony. So my final notes are that if Seattle Symphony is like this for the rest of the year or the season is completely like this, I would completely agree. It is definitely a new chapter and it is something I'm really excited to see. I'm really excited to go to the rest of the season because of this opening night. On one other hand, I would say is that I was going to mention this. So what I usually do is I get tickets at the front desk. So I don't check the prices of the seats until maybe the last moment, like as a just in case factor, Um, just in case, like, what if I have to buy the most expensive seat there because there are none left? And the prices for this concert were absolutely outrageous. I saw the orchestra level seats pricing at $300, which is completely out of line in my opinion. Like, yes, it is a truly magnificent performance, and Seattle Symphony is a world-class orchestra, but when I went to London, and the cost was around $30 for the most expensive performance. And number two, like in the past Seattle Symphonies, like orchestra level seats, the max they've been is ranging from $100 to $200. It's even for the famous soloists that would come, like Yuho Wang or Evgeny Kissin. Like those prices, $100 to $200 is pricey, even for those soloists. But for an opening night without such a world class, like Simon definitely was a world class level pianist, but he isn't one of the top 10, I would say. So it is really surprising to see $300 tickets at the Seattle Symphony for someone who is of my age, and like I don't have $300 to just drop at the like expense. And for people who it doesn't equal out, you know? So I really hope in the future that while I want the to see that level of excellence from the Seattle Symphony that they had tonight, I don't want to see it at a $300 level price tag. Yeah. Um so in general, that's all I have to say. This is my first time making a video, so I'm kind of rambling on one hand, and the second hand, I have notes that I took of the concert while I was on the bus on the way back that I was looking over just a little bit. I have this habit where I take notes of every concert that I go to, and I thought it would be interesting. Like, I got a lot of um, requests from my family and my friends to make a review, like either write a review or make a video explaining my thoughts So yeah, that's what I so yeah, that is my thoughts on the opening night of Seattle Symphony's 2025 season. I'm probably going to try to keep this up because this is a good way for me to look past on the concerts that I've been to. And yeah, thank you for watching. Let's see. What